Hello. For my second case study review, I decided to choose case number seven, case seven for Rex. After reading through the material, I was able to identify what I took to be the moral central problems of this case. The overall issue um, in this case can be relevant to the terms utilitarianism and consequentialism. Firstly, to define utilitarianism, in normative ethics states an action is right if it tends to promote happiness or pleasure. In other words, to maximize well being. Utilitarianism is a central moral problem as it relates to this case, due to Madison and her parents being unhappy that Dr. Walker, who was Madison's psychologist, declined to write the letter to her college campus's disability office that would essentially allow her dog Rex to be an emotional support animal and therefore live with her in the college dorms. The psychologist, from what I read, has a legitimate reason to deny her request, as he told her that her stress did not rise to the level of the disability. After finding out this information, Madison's mother took it upon herself and found dozens of companies on the internet willing to sell them a letter, to which would be even cheaper and more convenient, and ultimately just the easier route to go. All she had to do was take a small quiz versus having to talk to multiple psychologists. Madison and her parents are demonstrating utilitarianism theory by viewing the easiest action as the right thing and finding that without the doctor and fast purchase, that this option was the most useful. I use the word useful as it relates to utility, and the word utility is in utilitarianism, which means usefulness. Utilities are things that are useful. So I use that word because it relates a lot to utilitarianism, which they both mean anything that increases the human well-being or happiness. The problem with utilitarianism in this case is that it fails to take into account considerations of justice. When I say justice, I mean it cannot predict with certainty whether the consequences of our actions will be good or bad. This relates to consequentialism, which is a species of utilitarianism, which is kind of like a result-based ethics theory. If I was to try to explain that, that believes the morally right thing to do is the one with the best consequences. In other words, the more good consequences an act produces, the better or more right that act is. If I was to adopt a perspective of this case with Madison and her dog Rex as a consequentialist, or how one may respond to the central moral problems of this case, I would respond by judging whether Madison gets the better consequence and maximum pleasure by choosing to get her ESA license online versus the hassle of being denied, like I said earlier, by multiple psychologists. My chosen theory, in which relates most to consequentialism theory, offers a satisfactory response to the central moral problems of this case. As humans, we are ultimately bound to choose the option with greater good, with the better outcome. The problem we face is that we don't always know if we can achieve and predict positive consequences. We don't know, as humans, we don't know what our future is and what sometimes if our choices will always be good or bad. A non-consequentialist would probably say it may be wrong for Madison to purchase a license online, as it's may not be the morally correct way to proceed with doing something like that. What this tells me about the viability of the theory is that consequentialism is able to be identified from two choices Madison and her parents had to make. One being this that was suggested by the psychologist to get a mental evaluation done to predict if she could do that, um, and the other way being the fastest, most convenient way that relates to consequentialism, in which they chose the best overall consequence